سيقول لك المخلفون من الأعراب شغلتنا أموالنا وأهلنا فاستغفر لنا يقولون بألسنتهم ما ليس في قلوبهم قل فمن يملك لكم من الله شيئا إن أراد بكم ضرا أو أراد بكم نفعا بل كان الله بما تعملون خبيرا. شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمة الله عليه says أجمع كل عقلاء الأمة أن النعيم لا يدرك بالنعيم, because all the people of intellect have unanimously agreed that you cannot acquire excellence or bliss with relaxation. Right? You have to put in the effort. It was again, my father and my mother who really wanted us to memorize the Qur'an and to learn the Arabic language. My mother actually sold her gold. SubhanAllah. I was one of those brothers who really struggled. And without exaggeration, I would sit between 19 to 20 hours. Wallahi, Dawood, just trying to memorize one page. I'd go to the teachers as if I never memorized anything. لتنافس بكتابنا إن اجتماع الخيرين وفاء يا مرحبا أهل القرآن يا مرحبا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our new episode here on the Hifdhstatus podcast. After a long overdue break, alhamdulillah, we're joined today on this very special podcast with a very special guest, a beloved guest, one who is, alhamdulillah, not unfamiliar to many. And he's our beloved Sheikh, Ustadh Abu Taymiyyah. Just to give, inshallah ta'ala, before we, inshallah, pass it over to him, a little background of the Sheikh, inshallah, before we delve into, the journey of the Qur'an and some of the tips and practical tips for those who are listening, inshallah. Ustadh Abu Taymiyyah, he graduated from the University of Medina. He studied in Yemen. He studied, during his years in Yemen, he studied Arabic grammar, he studied Ahadith, he memorized Ahadith, and he studied under scholars such as Sheikh Al-Ruhaili, rahimahullah, hafidhahullah, Sulaiman Al-Ruhaili, and currently the Sheikh Ustadh Abu Taymiyyah resides in Leicester in the UK. So without further ado, inshallah ta'ala, we'd love to pass it on to the Sheikh and welcome him, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, jazakumullah khair for accepting the invite.
Wajib.
Now, we know your schedule, subhanAllah, it's very tight, subhanAllah, and to accept it at such short notice. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this heavy on your scales, Sheikhna, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair for coming. And it's our honor, wallahi, subhanAllah, to have you. Sheikhna, just bouncing off that short bio, inshallah, a lot of people, alhamdulillah, have reached out and been inspired about the stories of many people who've, attended or come onto the podcast so far. If we could, inshallah ta'ala, just gain a deeper insight into perhaps your earlier days of Hifdh, your early days with the Qur'an, what sparked that journey, what sparked that movement towards, really taking that path seriously.
طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين بعثه الله شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. First and foremost, Jazakallah khair for having me on. It's honestly a pleasure. Barakallah feek. I think it's worth mentioning how this all came about. I think it was somebody who posted one of your videos in a WhatsApp group. No. And honestly, wallahi, I thought it was a beautiful initiative to have a podcast just for brothers who are memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what actually dropped you guys a message to say, mashallah, keep it up. This is, to be honest, a game changer, I think it would be, right? All of these young brothers who have memorized the Qur'an, you're bringing them on and you're interviewing them. And others are going to see this and perhaps maybe be inspired in taking this journey, right, of memorizing the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So wallahi, it was really a beautiful thing to see these young brothers memorizing the book of Allah Azza wa Jal and then sharing their experience. So I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to really bless this podcast, honestly. There's different podcasts, as you guys are aware, right? So to have one for just the Qur'an is honestly amazing. Barakallah feekum. So I think one of the main causes that pushed me towards memorizing the book of Allah Azza wa Jal was none other than the encouragement of my parents. And I think that's extremely, extremely important, because if you look, especially in today's day and age, right, there are so many distractions. It's so easy to go astray, right? Especially now when you have all of these different institutions and schools and universities that have become breeding grounds for kufr, shirk, right? Feminism, liberalism, LGBTQ, and they're exposed to so many different deviations, right? So to have a parent who's going to put you straight and enlighten you with that which is inshallah ta'ala going to bring you goodness in this dunya and likewise the hereafter is wallahi golden. Even now, subhanAllah, when your dad walked in, I just thought he was maybe one of the workers in the building, and you could see the enthusiasm that he has of wanting to set everything up. So that really, really touched me, honestly, right? You normally don't find parents supporting their children in whatever they're trying to do. So you honestly, wallahi, have a huge blessing, wallahi, the fact that the father is also heavily involved in setting this up, and he's trying to partake in spreading the khair. So may Allah Azza wa Jal honor him.
Ameen.
Right? So I was really taken aback by that. So my parents, wherever we were, right, because I was born in the Netherlands, I still remember vividly some of the places we were studying Qur'an in. I don't know where it is. If you take me now to the Netherlands, I probably wouldn't know where that place was, but I just still remember the color of the table,
SubhanAllah.
the color of the walls. And I think I was maybe only 5-6 years of age, right? So everywhere we went, my dad would always hire a Qur'an teacher. Either he would take us to an institution, to a madrasa, or he would bring a Qur'an teacher to the house. Like I remember when we moved from the Netherlands to the UK, we initially went to Leicester.
Okay.
Right? We went to Leicester, and straight away the father enrolled us on a Qur'an program. And then we moved to London. Moved to London, and I was studying at the time in Finsbury Park.
Okay.
I spent 5 years of my life in London. I can't remember the exact reason, but due to some things that took place, we couldn't continue going physically to the institution itself. So my dad hired out one of my relatives, my cousin, his name is Hashim, to come over to the house every couple of days, and we would be reading the Qur'an to him. So subhanAllah, my dad would spend, and he would try his utmost best. And even later on, subhanAllah, when I decided to go abroad, it was again, my father and my mother who really wanted us to memorize the Qur'an and to learn the Arabic language. My mother actually sold her gold, subhanAllah. Having the gold, especially for women, is she sold it just so we could go and seek knowledge and memorize the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? And I sometimes think, because Allah Azza wa Jal blesses us in different ways, right? Perhaps maybe because my mother put all of that effort in, right? We, alhamdulillah, are blessed with different blessings, and so there's a lot of effort that goes into even now. Earlier you were saying that a lot of these youngsters who have memorized the Qur'an, sometimes people see them and think, mashallah, tabarakallah, he's memorized the Qur'an, but they don't actually know how much effort has gone into it. And the principle is, as Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhi mentioned, بِقَدَّرِ الْكَدِّ تُكْتَسَبُ الْمَعَالِي وَمَنْ طَلَبَ الْعُلَى سَهِرَ اللَّيَالِي. In accordance to how much effort you put into something, this is how much of loftiness you will acquire, right? The scraping of the elbows and the scraping of the knees. As Shaykh Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi used to say, if I could pour the knowledge into your mouths, I would do so, but I can't, You can only acquire knowledge with the scraping of the elbows and the scraping of the knees, and it's going to be tiring, and it's going to take a lot out of you. You will be exhausted, right? So putting in the effort, and I think that's common sense. Even Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi says, أجمع كل عقلاء الأمة أن النعيم لا يدرك بالنعيم. Because all the people of intellect have unanimously agreed that you cannot acquire excellence or bliss with relaxation, right? You have to put in the effort, right? And excuse me for using these examples. I'm not mentioning them in order to dignify them in any way, shape or form, but I think it's worth mentioning because the shabab can relate to these kind of personalities. You have Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Cristiano Ronaldo, who's maybe 37 years of age. The average footballer, he retires maybe 32, 33, 34. At the age of 37, he's still at the top of his game scoring hat-tricks. طيب, you look him up and you dig deep a little bit, right, about what he does with his life, and the man really puts in a lot of effort. His sleeping pattern, his diet, all of that, يعني, it shocks you, right? And the amount of time he puts into training. Even I remember many years ago, I looked up his life and what does he actually do in order to reach these levels, right? They say he stays behind after training, and he walks into training before everyone else. Subhanallah.
Yeah.
And you have, for example, like Elon Musk as well. I think I came across a tweet. It was something like he comes into work 7 days a week, and he puts in something like 16 hours a day, and it's not surprising why he's going through divorces and everything, right? But 16 hours he's putting in 7 days a week. I think it was 7 days or 6 days. I can't remember exactly, right? But that's still a lot.
Yeah.
That's consistency. That is discipline. And that's what you need. And it's not surprising why he became the most richest man on the face of this earth, right? And all of the other, you have Mike Tyson, you have Muhammad Ali. I think Muhammad Ali one time, right, he was seen running, right, in the countryside early morning. Maybe straight after Fajr, he's running around. And then someone took a picture of him and they asked him, why are you doing this? He goes, while my enemy is asleep, I'm getting one over him. Something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
Right? So all these people, they put effort into whatever they're trying to accomplish, right? And that's with everything.
Yeah.
That's with everything. Whether you look at it from an Islamic perspective or with any other perspective, you have to put in the effort and, inshallah ta'ala.
Yeah.
And it's not just the effort, by the way, as well. And I think it's important that we point out, with knowledge, this is a gift from Allah Azza wa Jal. So you have to go and beg Allah Azza wa Jal for that, make a lot of dua. If Allah Azza wa opens that door, then inshallah ta'ala, you will see a lot coming your way.
Yeah.
So it's not just effort, but also the tawfiq of Allah Azza wa Jal.
No. Yeah, definitely. There's that very common theme. And success, it's that famous quote that, hard work without talent beats talent without hard work, right? So someone could be talented, but if he doesn't put in the discipline and the hard work, and then he's going to be outpaced by the one who puts in that hard work, even though he might not be necessarily built for that thing that he's entering in the beginning. SubhanAllah, as in, like you mentioned, with regards to a lot of the youth, and you yourself, this is why it's so relatable, mashallah, because you grew up here in the UK. You were in Leicester, you were in London, so you understand, the struggles that people go, the distractions that they have in school and university. Especially now. And so, on the point of the parents, subhanAllah, many people watch these podcast episodes, and from the parents, this is really inspiring for them to see that, hold on, they can make such an impact upon their children. Especially at a time where, that barrier is being drawn, where parents are starting to, there's that culture of, let me live my life. Let me have kids later potentially, but we see that subhanAllah, it's almost like a sadaqah jariyah, this child that you're raising,
an investment,
subhanAllah. And so for those especially, perhaps let's shine a light on those who maybe didn't have maybe their parents aren't Muslim, or their parents perhaps didn't push them to memorize the Qur'an. Perhaps in the stage in your journey where you got to an age where you're independent. Everyone gets to that age where now they can actually say, if their parents say something, they can override it because they're independent now, they're strong enough, they got finances, etc. How would you advise those to go about making sure that they take the right steps in order? So, mashallah, obviously you went to Medina University, you studied, but was that something there from the beginning? What made you make that decision? And how did you make that decision because that must have been from your own self, because you were old enough to do that. How would you advise those to, embark and stay consistent and dedicated on that journey?
The way I used to look at it is, and I always mention this hadith and I'll mention it again, right? So it's my favorite hadith. Before I left to Yemen, a lot of people were saying to me that when you take years out of your life to go and study, you're going to fall behind. Everyone's going to surpass you in academics and your studies and whatever have you. By the time you come back, everyone's going to be working on very high-paid wages and whatever have you, and you're going to be struggling and this and that. And of course, that really does get to you at times. However, I still can't. I've completely forgot who he was that taught me this hadith, and I always make dua for him. Someone taught me this hadith. Subhanallah, man, I've tried so hard to remember who he was. Maybe I can send him a gift and and go and honor him, you know. The hadith was إنك لن تدع شيئا اتقاء لله إلا أعطاك الله خير منه. You don't leave something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? Doing it out of taqwa, being conscious of him, Allah Azza wa Jal, the Almighty, except that he will give you that which is better. And subhanAllah, when someone said that to me, and of course, on the other side, I'm hearing all of these different pieces of advice from different people, right? Which of course is, without a shadow of a doubt, going to affect your mindset. And eventually Allah gave me the tawfiq to really just go with what I heard of this hadith, right? And I didn't know barely any hadith at the time. And subhanAllah, so I went, and when I came back, I realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't make me miss out. I didn't miss out on everything, on anything, right? Where they may have been acquiring a council flat. But a lot of brothers who are looking to get married, getting a council flat here in London is a big deal.
Yep.
It's a huge deal. Even got a cousin of mine who's an optometrist. He's on a huge wage, Allahumma barik, right? He himself is trying to get a council flat. He doesn't want to, of course, take that haram route of getting a mortgage and whatever have you, right? So he's trying his utmost best because it will save you so much money. So there's like a waiting list. You're looking at 5, 6, 7 years here in London. So over there in Leicester is a lot easier. But Allah Azza wa Jal gave me that straight away, right? I managed to get into a very top university, Loughborough University. I think it's top 5 when it comes to engineering. I only did college for a year, right? Most people do college for 2 years, 3 years. I did an access to engineering course and then I got into the top university. Why am I mentioning all of this? Like I always, think to myself, maybe Allah Azza wa Jalla is showing me this is dunya. I'll give it to you, right? It means everything to most people to get into a top-notch university like that. But Allah just gave it to me like that. It's like Allah is showing me, okay, you leave something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla. You do that which is far greater. وَرِزْقُ رَبِّكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى, right? The provision of your Lord is far greater and everlasting, right? And so I'm going out to memorize the Qur'an, to learn ahadith, to learn about deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah is showing me, look, all of this dunya, I'll give it to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? So after I seen all of this happen, the next time round, when I had to make the decision to go to Al-Madinah, I didn't even think twice. I said, if Allah Azza wa Jal gave me this, and you can maybe profile me to be someone who is like fresh off the boat, right? If you want to call me that. When I came back from Yemen, I had no qualifications, right? Like I had my GCSEs, I did all of that, if that makes sense. I had my GCSEs.
But beyond that, you went straight.
Yeah, I went straight. I did, I think, 6 months of college, and then I went straight. That's the first thing.
It's a big sacrifice.
Yeah, it is. So I came back, I had no qualifications. I didn't have any work experience or anything like that. If that makes sense. So even then, Allah Azza wa Jal just threw everything my way, right? So when you think about the hadith, my brother and my sister, the one who's maybe not necessarily ever had that system around him of encouraging him to do khair and to memorize and to go to study and whatever have you, Allah just placed this hadith before your eyes, and Allah Azza wa Jalla will take care of everything, inshallah ta'ala.
SubhanAllah, what you mentioned at the beginning with regards to the one who told you that hadith, and SubhanAllah, how much the impact that hadith had on you. And SubhanAllah, when you, it's like it reminds me of the hadith. When you mention that, it reminds me of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Ballighu anni walau ayah." Narrate onto me from me something, even if it's one verse. And you don't know what impact it will have on someone else, SubhanAllah. Look at the impact that it's had, SubhanAllah. And that person, whoever he is, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Even Imam al-Bukhari, it's good that you're mentioning that. Imam al-Bukhari, the reason as to why he authored the most authentic book after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is because a request was made, why don't you make a book that compiles the most authentic ahadith, and subhanAllah, it really resonated within him, and that one same on that journey.
SubhanAllah, it's powerful. Before you traveled to Yemen, SubhanAllah, I wasn't aware you traveled at such a young age. SubhanAllah, that's a big sacrifice. Before you went, were you Hifdh before you left?
No, I wasn't.
How was the journey of the Qur'an then?
So we moved back to Leicester.
Yeah.
This is, I think, in year 11. And again, the father enrolled us on a Qur'an program in one of the masajid over there, and I was memorizing. But I was, subhanAllah, Allah, this is why I really admire you brothers who memorize the Qur'an in the UK. I fell into that system of being distracted, right? I just finished year 11, went to college, right? And because I was a little bit of a superstar when it comes to football and basketball and table tennis and whatever have you, I would go to these after school clubs, right? Football and I started becoming extremely laxed with my Qur'an studies. And my teacher, may Allah Azza wa Jalla preserve him, Sheikh Shu'aib, not Sheikh Shu'aib from London.
Another Sheikh Shu'aib.
Yeah, he's an Asian Sheikh, right? He would always try to encourage me, and I think he just eventually became fed up. He even had a big miswak, coated with leather. And I think I got tired of, disciplining me. In the end, he just said something like, because I started becoming weak. I'm memorizing, and then you'll forget. If you don't stay on top of your Qur'an, as you're aware, it's just going to slip away, right? Eventually, he says something like, and I'm so happy he said this to me. Wallahi, I love him for it. No. Every now and again, I go to him and I say to the Sheikh, you've done, something amazing for me. And he goes, no, I haven't done anything. I don't think the Sheikh realizes the impact that one statement had on me. He said, you're never going to memorize the Qur'an. Sometimes you need tough love.
No.
When he said that to me, it's like the whole world came crashing down onto me. Wallahi. That's when I said, enough is enough. I need to take this journey a lot more serious.
No. At that point, were you a couple edges out into your memorization, or were you just at the
I call it British memorization. I think I reached Surah Yasin. The last 5 were always good.
No.
Because from a young age, I memorized them, and of course I would forget every time I started a new Qur'an school. I'd have to revise again. So the first 5 was pretty good, and then from Al-Ahqaf up to Yasin, that's what I memorized over there. No. But even then, it was just extremely watery. Don't get me wrong, the system that they had in the madrasa was amazing. Like the Asians, they have the best of systems from what I've observed. The system was amazing. They have like far revision, short, I think close revision, that's what they call it. And then the new portion. New portion, the sabak they call it.
No.
And so the system was amazing. Even this is the kind of system that I personally recommend to brothers and sisters. But it was just me who was falling short, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's very interesting, SubhanAllah, what you mentioned with regards to, it wasn't the way that the Qur'an was taught, it was the environment that had an impact. How did you feel that impact or the difference in environment when you came from here, from London, from Leicester to Yemen? How was that on yourself?
Yeah, so when I went to Yemen, I wanted to study full time, right? So it was at a time when it wasn't the social media era, if you want to call it that. I don't think there was even WhatsApp at the time.
SubhanAllah.
Right, 2010 it was. There was no WhatsApp. Was there smartphones at the time? I think maybe there was.
I would probably believe it. I can't comment on that one.
Even yesterday when I was at Westminster University, I think it was. No, sorry, Masjid Risala Holloway. I said, you guys remember the Nokia phones? With the snake? Well, they all looked confused, the youngsters over there. And it was a packed masjid, and I'm looking at the brothers like, someone reached out to me. Someone reached out to me, and some of the brothers were like, I don't think some of these guys weren't even alive.
No,
of course, they're like 18, 19, 20. But maybe, how many years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, SubhanAllah, it's like 12 years ago now, right? They were, many of them were maybe in their Pampers. Maybe not Pampers, but they was really young. So they were very, very young, maybe 10 years of age, 9 years of age. So this is when I realized, I think I'm getting a little bit old now.
We say technology is just advancing at a really fast rate.
SubhanAllah. So 2010, there wasn't all of that social media. I think there was Facebook, but I don't even think Instagram.
I think Facebook was the first one, the first one to come out. Yeah, it must have been from 2005.
I don't think I heard about Instagram at the time.
Yeah.
Or even WhatsApp or Snapchat or any of these different social media platforms, right? So you had Facebook, but we didn't have it on our phones. If that makes sense. You'd have to go to a computer, I think it was, in order to contact people and have a chat with them. So alhamdulillah, we didn't have that distraction over there in the Yemen. In the Maj, we barely had even electricity.
SubhanAllah.
If I needed to use internet, I would have to go to this internet cafe. There was just one internet cafe. Remember, we're actually living in between mountains here. The electricity is switched on by a motor. There's a huge motor there that switches on, right? And and even the internet over there was extremely slow. It would be one of them dialers, I think it was. You have to dial it, and then you're waiting like maybe 10 seconds to get on bbc.com, right? Maybe even more than that, in fact. And then sometimes it just switches off, and then sometimes you just have to wait for minutes because something happens to the dialer and whatever have you. So this was basically you'd kind of like just get fed up of you and using the internet. Let me just go back to my studies.
Yeah.
So the environment really did help in that sense. And then later on, I think a year and a half or two into my studies, I realized brothers were buying these smartphones. And then these smartphones had WhatsApp, and it was then when somebody gifted me with, I think, an iPhone at the time. I forgot which one it is, but a very old iPhone. Even then I didn't use it. It's like, oh, Jazakallah khair, and I just put it. I didn't even know how to use it. I only started using it as soon as I came back. As soon as I came back, I downloaded WhatsApp, and I started having conversations. People put me into WhatsApp groups. This was in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
So that's when I became a WhatsApp guy, like, you know. Yeah. So that's the environment over there. But Alan, may Allah Azza wa Jal have mercy upon the people. These phones are a huge distraction. Huge distraction.
No. So obviously then coming back, do you feel like you were able to continue upon that consistency, that discipline, when you came from that environment, for example, traveling? And off the back of that, would you say it's worth then, you know, leaving an environment like this and traveling and then coming back? How would you remain upon that discipline? Because you're back in the deep end.
Well, I personally believe in, I don't necessarily like, how can I put this? It's not necessarily the place, but it's actually the movement itself, if that makes sense. You could be anywhere around the world. If you manage to discipline yourself, right? You can really take huge strides forward, honestly. There are so many brothers, subhanAllah, like yourself, and so many of the other younger brothers who are at university, right? I have a cousin, mashallah, tabarakallah, Muhammad Hamza. I don't know whether he's finished or he's on the verge of finishing. He's doing medicine at Queen Mary. I don't know if you know him.
I'm close friends with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mashallah. I'm looking forward to going to Queen Mary, by the way. I've heard it's the best eye sock. Allahu A'lam.
It's like, the eye sock's huge. A lot of Muslims there as well.
I thought yesterday Westminster was amazing, and I mentioned something like that. I was like, brothers, I heard this Queen Mary is better than Westminster, and they all started laughing.
You're going to have a packed out, subhanAllah, for QM. It's, subhanAllah,
No, even yesterday was ajib, honestly. May Allah reward them.
Ameen.
I see all these brothers and sisters, youngsters coming, wanting to benefit. I told them, it really shows there's a lot of goodness in you, right? Because many of you guys could have been enjoying yourselves. It was Friday night. What are most shabab doing on a Friday night, especially here in London?
Yep.
So Allah Azza wa Jal chose them, and that's what I told them, right? So anyways, going back to that point, Muhammad, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, has he finished or is he on the verge?
He's very close to finishing now.
Allahumma barik. And he's doing medicine, I think it is, right? Is it pharmacy or medicine? Medicine. And I look at that and I really, really like become inspired, honestly. So it's the discipline. They even say motivation gets you going and discipline keeps you going. Right?
That's exactly it.
So I've seen brothers go abroad and not benefit. And then there are people here who have never gone abroad and mashallah they've memorized the Qur'an. Right? So it goes back to the person. And yes, without a shadow of a doubt, the environment does help. It really, really does. Some people like myself, I need to kind of like detach myself from all of the different distractions. My distraction is being invited here. Can you come down here, do this program, do this khutab? And that kind of like just sometimes, distracts you in your journey and your consistency in whatever you're trying to memorize and whatever you're trying to do. Alhamdulillah, I found solutions for it. But I think that answers the question. It's mainly the person's mentality and his discipline that he really, really, really needs to train himself to become like that. And there's ways of doing that. No.
With regards to, and we sort of touched upon this briefly in the beginning, with regards to people that have begun their memorization of the Qur'an, their journey in the Qur'an later on in their life, do you have any tips for them with regards to how they can go about memorizing efficiently? They might say, it's impossible. We didn't memorize, under the age of 20. You didn't memorize at this age, this certain age. There's no way I'm going to memorize now. My memory's poor. I've just begun, but it takes me 100 times before I can memorize a verse. I'm not cut out for it.
As a Muslim, I don't think we should believe in something called the impossible, right? Impossible should not exist in our dictionary. It really shouldn't. With a dua and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to shower upon you of blessings and futuhat, openings, right? It takes maybe one dua in the last third of the night in your sujood, a dua from the bottom of your heart that Allah Azza wa Jal opens so many doors for you. Wallahi. Right? I was one of those brothers who really, really struggled. And without exaggeration, I would sit between 19 to 20 hours. Wallahi, that would just trying to memorize one page. I'd go to the teachers as if I never memorized anything. And the Shaykh would be extremely gentle with me because he would see me in the masjid up until I became so sick, subhanAllah. I remember I got admitted into the sick room. I was there for a whole week. Like I think I broke. Like it was the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say, right? And it ended me, really, really did. It was a very, very hectic schedule that I was on. And me, I'm on this intensive Qur'an program where you have to memorize 3 pages a day. I'm just trying to do 1 page. I go to the teachers as if I never memorized it. And I tried and I continued, and I was advised to make dua in the last third of the night. And eventually I just seen, subhanAllah, me memorizing 3 pages within an hour and a half. Right? Maybe even less than that. I really, really struggled. Honestly, I still remember them days. And I thank Allah Azza wa Jal that He allowed me to go through that experience. Perhaps it can inspire others, right? People just sometimes see videos, me quoting certain quotations and ayat and hadith, and they think, oh, mashallah, your memorization and whatever have you. Akhi, it's like I said earlier, if Allah Azza wa Jal accepts the dua, it opens the door, akhi, you'll see so many things becoming easy. Right? 19 to 20 hours, akhi. I was on 4 hours sleep. Sometimes 4.5, coming up to 5. I had eye bags and whatever have you. And eventually it ended up becoming easy.
No.
If that makes sense. So the believer should not believe in something called impossible. With a dua, right? Allah Azza wa Jal can indeed bless you with that which the mind can't imagine. Right?
No. That's really, really powerful. That's really powerful, because when people sometimes put up these barriers that, okay, I won't memorize until I travel, or I won't memorize until I do this. And subhanAllah, sometimes when they plan shaitan and they never actually travel and they never actually memorize, and so years go by.
Try now. Perhaps maybe the fact that you're putting in the work and you're showing Allah Azza wa Jal that you really want something, right? Allah Azza wa Jal will make it easier for you to go and travel. How many brothers have I seen that happen to, right? They might go to Egypt. They're showing Allah Azza wa Jal, look how badly I want it. He spends from his money, goes abroad. Right? There are brothers that I know travel from east to west. Some brothers, may Allah bless them, brothers like Jabir, Muhammad, call him Mojo, right? Brother Abdullah. Some of these brothers, they would be traveling from East London all the way to west to attend my inheritance class. Right? And some of them have been accepted to go and study abroad in Saudi Arabia. And I think to myself, subhanAllah, perhaps maybe because they put the effort in, they showed Allah Azza wa Jal, He opened doors for them, you see.
Naam. On the point of, and we sort of briefly touched upon this, on the topic of parents, there's mashallah, a lot of parents that watch, the podcast episodes, and they reached out, a lot of parents, subhanAllah, and they reach out and they say, it's kind of provided a sort of template of how other parents have gone about teaching their children. And obviously we live in a city, a major city in the West, like London, so for parents who, they themselves aren't Huffaz, they themselves aren't scholars, but they want their children to be Huffaz, they want their children to be people that study the deen. How can they go about doing that and making sure that perhaps they change something in themselves and they go about implementing a certain technique to pass on to their children and teach them?
SubhanAllah, the parents, may Allah Azza wa Jalla reward them, right? I think you find 2 kinds of parents, right? A parent who wants their children to do good. However, you yourself are not providing the example that they are in need of, right? If the parent has these hopes of, I want my children to become righteous individuals, I want them to become Huffaz of the Qur'an. However, at the same time, I don't want to detach myself from the movies that I watch throughout the day. Like, can you see the kind of precedent you are setting for your children? That's only going to affect them, and you're never going to be able to fulfill the hopes that you have as a parent, right? parent is sitting there watching Netflix series, and I think it's important that I also make mention of what could actually prevent them being able to progress in their memorization. There are sins, right? There's this lecture that I have on my YouTube channel. It's called 5 Sins That Prevent Knowledge, right? 5 sins that prevent knowledge. And that which we keep looking at, especially if you keep staring at the opposite gender, that without a shadow of a doubt has a huge impact on individual's heart, on individual's memorization. Yesterday, gave a lecture on the effects of sins from the book of Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi, and advised everyone to buy this book. It's been translated in English. I even had the book with me. I wish I did. Maybe you can take a picture of it and put it on the screen. It's called The Sickness and the Cure by Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi, Ad-Da'u wad-Dawa. That kitab is amazing. Even when he listed a number of effects that sins have on an individual, the first point that he started with was hirmanul ilm,
prevention from knowledge.
To be deprived of knowledge. What did he mention? He mentioned the example of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi when he sat in front of Al-Imam Malik. Imam Malik was shocked by the sharpness of Imam al-Shafi'i's memorization. And he said to him, إِنِّي أَرَى أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَلْقَى فِي قَلْبِكَ نُورًا فَلَا تُطْفِئَهَا بِظُلْمَةِ الْمَعْصِيَةِ. I can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed a nur in your heart. Do not extinguish this light with the darkness of sinning. Sometimes we push our children to go to madrasa and he just doesn't have the desire to memorize. When one day he did, right? And then the teacher may not necessarily understand why all of a sudden he doesn't want to memorize. It could be that he's involved in certain types of sins, or he's been exposed to things that, the classmates are watching, that many of our shabab are becoming addicted to, and he's now fallen into that trap. And now, of course, that's going to destroy your heart, right? It's going to affect your memory. No. Subhanallah. They say about the Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, because you can see now how sharp his memorization was. His memorization was so sharp, imagine you have a kitab, right?
Yeah.
And you cover one side. Like he would have to cover one side just so that side does not become mixed with the other. If he wanted to memorize all of that, he would have to cover the other because of how powerful his memorization was. Because he might end up,
Yeah. Blending.
And later on, subhanallah, in his life, he began to suffer from memory loss, or loss of memory. I think that's the best way to word it. He began to suffer from a loss of memory. And the famous lines of poetry, شَكَوْتُ إِلَى وَكِيعٍ سُوءَ حِفْظِي. He said, I complained to Waki' my loss of memory. And I always used to wonder, why did he go to Waki' out of all of the mashayikh and the scholars that taught him? Because he could have gone to Imam Malik, right? The one who said to him, I can see that Allah placed a nur in your heart. I'll mention that inshallah ta'ala in a moment. But he went to complain about his memory loss. طيب, what did Imam Waki' ibn al-Jarrah mention to him? Did he say, khalas, don't worry, Imam Shafi'i, your glory days are behind you. You've got nothing to worry about. You're getting old. لا. فأرشدني إلى ترك المعاصي. He directed me to leave off sinning. فأخبرني بأن العلم نور ونور الله لا يهدى لعاصي. Told me that the ilm is a nur. Knowledge is a light. And this light is not granted to a asi, someone who's a sinner. Subhanallah. They say that Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, he saw bangles on a woman's ankle. That affected his memory. He looked at her ankles and this is what affected his memory. That's then. Imagine now in today's day and age, right, where we live in a sexualized society, right? So you as a parent, there's only so much that you could do, right? If you have brought the shaitan into the house, and I know some parents may think, oh, this is extremely extreme. Why shouldn't we have a TV in our house? I'm not saying the issue is not the TV itself, is what you put onto the TV or the screen. Some people, they have screens in their homes, right? But they're not sitting around watching Netflix series, right? Love movies and programs and whatever have you, and the children are sitting there. So it really starts with the parent. There's only so much that you could do, and the last thing that you should be doing as a parent who has these hopes of their children becoming hufad is by bringing the shaitan into the house, right? Where the children are going to be exposed to so much sin, and they're looking at these girls, and these love scenes and whatever have you, and then in these movies you have music. All of this is affecting the child's heart. SubhanAllah. Right? What did Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi mention? Some lines of poetry, right? He said, حب الكتاب وحب ألحان الغنى في قلب عبد ليس يجتمعان. The love of the Qur'an and the love of music is two things that just can't come together in one's heart. I remember when I was young, once my mother, she caught me with music on my phone. I used to have these Nokia phones, right? This was actually the joke that I was having with the brothers in North London, right? And then she caught me. And she said, Muhammad, you're not going to be able to memorize Qur'an while you're listening to music. But you know, when we're kids growing up, you always think that our parents are backwards and you know, they're out of touch with reality and whatever have you. Because back in the day when we used to have the infrared, you used to connect your phone to another, hold it like that, and the music files would be transferred.
Seriously, before Bluetooth. And
Shahid, subhanAllah, she said that to me. And then years down the line, I came across this line of poetry. The love of music and the love of Qur'an are two things that just can't come in together in one's heart. So as a parent, you really do need to set the example, right? Like I said, there's only so much that you could do. If you as a parent, you know, you're waking up your children after Fajr. There are parents that do that. It's not easy. And nothing comes easy. After Fajr, they get into that routine, because by the time they wake up, let's just say at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. Actually, no, they go to school at 9, right? So maybe 8, they're busy, they're going to school, they're coming back. Their minds are already too...
There's so much baggage.
It's become polluted throughout the day. So in the mornings, and it's been proven, the scholars have made mention of it, either before Fajr or after Fajr. It's a very blessed time to get them to start memorizing. Yeah, and a parent has to make a sacrifice. That can really, really help. That can really, really help. And if the parent themselves are busy watching things, then the children are going to be busy as well. Yeah. Like I've had parents come up to me, oh, can you talk to my daughter? She's on TikTok. Type, auntie, like, you've got Snapchat on your phone. Like, how can you expect your child to come off TikTok?
You have to set the example.
Exactly. Or sometimes what happens is the mother might just give a phone to the child as young as maybe 3 years of age, so she can continue watching her Netflix series, right, in peace. So from a very young age, their attention span are becoming, you know, really badly affected, and they grow up like that.
There was a really subhanAllah powerful study. I think it was something like in America, the average child sees over 500,000 images by the age of 6 years old.
SubhanAllah.
And it's a case of subhanAllah, every image that you see is stored in some way in the brain. And maybe even like what you said about the story, Imam Shafi'i used to cover one side because he wouldn't want that photographic memory to affect his memorization of the page. 500,000 images by the age of 6. You know, you can imagine back in the days they would never see that. Maybe in a whole lifetime it'd take for them to see that many images. So all these things impact.
Habibi, you know, kids as young as 1.5, wallahi, they start imitating their parents. They will even start praying. I've seen it with my own eyes. As young as 1.5 years of age. They'll even pick up the Qur'an and they start humming because they see their parents doing this. So the parents have a huge role to play in the direction that the child goes. So if you like set the scene to be like a Qur'an friendly environment, right, that's all they ever know. Like you said, Akhi, that's a beautiful benefit that you just made mention of. Would you say 6 million? Or half a million? 500,000. Allahu Akbar.
SubhanAllah, it's really... We spoke about, just now you covered, you know, what sort of makes a good environment in the house, what good things parents can implement. You know, you as a teacher, you know, teaching many different various durus and attending different halaqat and giving various khutab, looking at the students that come to each session, and obviously you got those consistent students, you got the students that pop in and they come now and then. What, in your eyes, and this is for those who are on the journey who have teachers, what in your eyes makes a good student? What qualities can a person bring that will make them a good student in the eyes of their teacher and ensure that they have a long journey with their hijr?
I think being argumentative, the way you speak to the teacher can either really just put him off, right? They say this about Abu Salamat al-Kufi, from the students that Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu had was many. Like you have Mujahid ibn Jabbar, you have Ata ibn Abi Rabah, Tawus, and so on and so forth. However, Abu Salamat al-Kufi is not like a household name. Why? They say about him, he used to really argue with his teacher. Right? He used to be very argumentative. There's a way to ask a question, if that makes sense. There's a way to ask the question. So being somebody who's always in the face of his teacher, you need to realize at times he's extremely tired, and for you to constantly be in his face, and he's just going to be put off, right? They say about some of the other students of Abdullah, they were extremely soft and nice with the teacher, and even the way they worded it, and that really, you know, has an impact on the teacher himself, if that makes sense. No one is saying that you can't ask questions to your teacher. In fact, like, I love it when students ask questions and they want to learn and whatever have you. However, the way you address it, having the, you know, the good etiquette is extremely important.
Yes.
You'll hear sometimes a student calling out his teacher and saying, yo, Wallahi al-Azim. Like saying, yo, like, what was that thing that you said again? Come on, yani.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Even if you read up the books of adab, etiquette and everything, right? There's a way to address the teacher.
No.
And that's in your own best interest. Because with good etiquette, bil-adabi tafhamu al-ilm. As mentioned by one of the scholars, Sheikh Salih al-Usaymi, he mentions this in his kitab. Subhanallah.
With good manners, understanding.
It's a kitab. I always teach, نعم, تعظيم العلم.
تعظيم العلم.
Subhanallah.
Venerating knowledge.
نعم, تعظيم العلم, venerating knowledge. Sheikh Salih al-Usaymi, he taught us this kitab in the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's masjid. And he has some amazing benefits in there. One of the nicest books that I've read on etiquette. You also have the kitab of Jama'at al-Kinani, right? Rahmatullahi alayhi, Tadhkiratu al-Sami' wal-Mutakallim, on etiquette, how to be with the teacher. So the teacher will feel more comfortable keeping this student by his side and always having that conversation, that knowledge-based conversation with him and so on and so forth. Also that which makes a very good talib is that he always tries to come early, right? The way I look at it is, if you're always late, expect to be the last to understand.
SubhanAllah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're always late, expect to be the one who is at the back of the queue when it comes to understanding that knowledge. Right? There are etiquettes. Come early, revise before and after. Right? I think that's extremely, extremely important as well. Also what I think is extremely important, that a teacher is respected by the student, meaning when the teacher gives him advice in his journey, right, that he takes it on board, inshallah. Right? I'm not saying that he becomes a blind follower, that every, something that he's told about, he does. Like, I think that might be another extreme, if that makes sense. But you are now studying under this teacher and you're going to see advices from so many different people, right? There's barakah in taking the advice of your sheikh with regards to maybe how to seek that path. Otherwise, go to someone else. If you're coming to the teacher and you're saying, look, guide me with regards to this journey of Qur'an or this journey of knowledge, and then he's telling you what is best for you. And at times he may tell you to do something because of what he knows of you. Because the students are different. You listen, right? And then maybe a couple of weeks after you've heard another piece of advice, you're doing the complete opposite. You're just going to tire out the teacher and he's just going to get fed up. And khalas, you just say, go to somewhere else. Right? Does that make sense? So listening to the teacher is extremely important, taking on the advice, if that makes sense.
Assalamu alaikum, jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. If we can, inshallah, what we usually do at this period in the podcast, we usually ask our guests to recite some, inshallah ta'ala, ayat ma tayassara min al-Qur'an, inshallah. If that's okay with you, inshallah.
What do you want me to read?
I think you probably are expecting this request in whatever, inshallah ta'ala, you like, Sheikh, but obviously, inshallah, maybe in a way of what everyone really enjoys, Khalaf and Hamza.
Yesterday, brother Ahmed from Masjid Risala, he messaged me while I was walking out. Because can you come early? Because we want to hear Khalaf and Hamza. So I led the Isha there.
So that was actually one of the first riwayat I heard from a young age outside of, we always hear Warsh and Hifdh, and that's all you know. And then you hear Khalaf and Hamza with the sakatat, it really throws you off, and it's actually really, subhanAllah, amazing.
And on that point, like, brothers are looking for an alternative when it comes to music. I've had a number of brothers say to me that how they used to be addicted to music and whatever have you, and they used to listen to different types of music. I think it's R&B and whatever have you. And they were like, more than one brother has said this to me. When I led in a masjid with Khalaf and Hamza, they were like, I think this is my alternative.
Subhanallah.
Right? Because it's sakatat and everything. Not that I'm trying to, for someone takes it out of context, I'm trying to
it's the variations
compare Khalaf and Hamza with music, hasha, abadan. I'm not trying to do that. But it might be an alternative for you, inshallah ta'ala, because of how it stops and everything, due to what you may be used to start listening to Khalaf and Hamza. طيب you put me on the spot here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم سيقول لك المخلفون من الأعراب شغلتنا أموالنا وأهلنا فاستغفر لنا يقولون بألسنتهم ما ليس في قلوبهم قل فمن يملك لكم من الله شيئا إن أراد بكم ضرا أو أراد بكم نفعا بل كان الله بما تعملون خبيرا بل ظننتم أن لن ينقلب الرسول والمؤمنون إلى أهليهم أبدا وزين ذلك في قلوبكم وظننتم ظن السوء وكنتم قوما بورا ومن لم يؤمن بالله ورسوله فإنا أعتدنا للكافرين سعيرا ولله ملك السماوات والأرض يغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء وكان الله غفورا رحيما سيقول لك المخلفون إذا انطلقتم إلى مغانم لتأخذوها ذرونا نتبعكم يريدون أن يبدلوا كلم الله قل لن تتبعونا كذلكم قال الله من قبل فسيقولون بل تحسدوننا بل كانوا لا يفقهون إلا قليلا.
Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh. I just, there's a lot of this is one of the perfect opportunity. We really wanted to get this opportunity. There's a lot of people that have been watching the podcast and be like, we keep hearing Riwayat, Qira'at, like it throws them off, and sometimes it puts a bit of doubts, in terms of so many variations. Like it almost sounds completely different. Some words change, some that. So if you could, inshallah ta'ala, if the time permits, we could, inshallah, maybe perhaps explain what Riwayat are.
By the way, I'm not a qari. With regards to I heard Sheikh Ayman Suwaid, Hifdhullah ta'ala, use this mithal, and I normally tend to use it. And I think it's a very good one, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent these different riwayat as a rahmah, as a mercy upon the people. Let me ask you a question, right? Egyptians, they have a particular dialect, right? The Yemenis, they sound extremely different. You'll go to Libya or Morocco, they sound very different from the Egyptian and also the Yemenis and the Saudis and the Kuwaitis. Yeah. Imagine we said that every single individual has to sound like the Egyptian. Me, I don't even consider Egyptians to speak the Arabic language. I don't even think that's considered Arabic language, No offense to the Egyptians, by the way. But imagine we said everybody has to sound like the Egyptians. How difficult that would be. Yep. Does that make sense? So from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He sent down these different variations, these different modes in order to make it easy on the people. Someone who's maybe used to doing imala, right? The Syrians, they mala, they've got
they've got that in the language.
The way they stretch words and everything. And subhanAllah, some riwayat might even be more easy on their tongue than maybe Hifdh, for example. So that's from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I normally also tend to use the example of, how the Australians, they sound very different to the British. Yeah. And the Canadians and the Americans, everyone sounds very differently. Imagine we said, if you don't sound like the Australians, the Aussies, I just came back from Australia, I love the accent. Imagine we said, your English is not correct unless you sound like the Aussies. Don't you think that would be extremely difficult? Right? Or if I said you have to sound like the Liverpudlians, their English is so different. So from the rahmah of Allah Azza wa Jal is that, He sent down these different ways of reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to make it easy for the people, right? It was all sent down from Allah Azza wa Jal, so you don't need to have any doubts upon the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed it to his companions. And there is a chain going up all the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a chain that is muttasil, that is connected, right? This is one of the blessings of our religion, is that we have chains. لولا الإسناد لقال من شاء ما شاء, right? If it wasn't for these chains of narration, everybody would come and say whatever they want and attribute to the deen whatever they think, right? And when you look at the Christians, isn't this exactly what's happened? Even when it comes to the Bible that we have today, right? They will struggle to prove it to be a divine speech, going up to Allah Azza wa Jal with everything in there. Qur'an, that we memorize from the time of the Prophet ﷺ all the way up until this time, it hasn't been changed. And if you just look at it from a logical perspective, the guy from the other side of the world, he sounds exactly the same as how we read over here in the UK. Look how Allah Azza wa Jalla has preserved the Qur'an. I remember when I was leading Tarawih this year in Masjid Quba, Leicester, some of the elders were kicking off a little bit, right? Most of the people, they were so happy. People were just coming to the masjid in order to hear Khalaf and Hamza. And I was doing Kisa'i, but from time to time I would interchange into Khalaf and Hamza, and they would love it. Except, of course, some of the elders are always causing trouble, right? So it was a bit of a struggle there, right? It was a bit of a struggle. It was maybe 3-4 uncles. And, you know, sometimes when an individual reaches a certain age, to get a message across to him is extremely, extremely difficult. Yeah. And the majority, we've got so many people praying there, coming for the riwayat, they're extremely happy. SubhanAllah, this brother from France, we let him lead a couple of times. And he also started reading with Khalaf and Hamza, and that made me really happy. So I grabbed the mic and I said, brothers, look how he read and look how I've been reading. Look how Allah Azza wa Jalla has preserved the Qur'an. This brother has come from a completely different country. And then he's come now, and I've never gone to that country. We've never met one another. And our Qira'at, or the way we're reading is almost identical, right? So this is an example that the Qur'an has been preserved, and it's one of those that we feel extremely proud about with regards to our religion. And I was trying to get a message to the elders. But even then, they still didn't.
And it really makes me happy when I hear the Mashaykh reading with different riwayat, because I feel like this science is so... It's one of those sciences that, subhanAllah, I think there needs to be a lot more awareness about. You know, recently there was one of the Asatid here in London, he read in Warsh. Warsh is like... Yes. Compared to Khalaf and Hamza, it's much more well known, right? And he forgot to inform the people before the Salah, right? And subhanAllah, some of the people in the Salah broke their prayer and left.
Ajib.
Because of the differences in the recitation. And it should not be the case, because sadly there's a lack of awareness about this. I think in the last 4 or 5 years in London that's changed a little bit.
I think due to Sheikh Abdul Rashid. I think he's the one that's really brought it to life over here in the UK, right?
Subhanallah. And it really adds that beauty to the Qur'an in the sense of
Ihya al-ilm, bringing life to knowledge that may have been deserted and forgotten about. And there's a huge reward in that, you know, doing Ihya al-ilm.
SubhanAllah.
Allahu Akbar.
And it's almost like for the Hafidh as well, it kind of, because sometimes when you memorize the Qur'an, you're like, okay, it stops here, but then you realize we've got 19 other ways to learn it in. SubhanAllah. It really adds that SubhanAllah. And
more than that, SubhanAllah.
More than that, yeah, exactly. More than that, for the turuq and SubhanAllah. And again, it also, what it does is makes one appreciate when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, just as you mentioned. It's not that preservation is not restricted to the one riwayah of Hifdh. There's so many different preservations and different riwayat and turuq, and all of which have been preserved. So it boosts the iman a lot as well.
Without shadow of a doubt. Right. I normally tend to announce it before the salah, because as you mentioned, Khalaf is a lot more read and warsh, just for the purpose of, you know, giving life to knowledge and to encourage the hufad to maybe, because the reason why I went into Qira'at, I remember I was having this conversation with your teacher, may Allah Azza wa Jalla preserve him.
Ameen.
I only went into Qira'at in order to motivate myself to stay on my toes. I didn't go into Qira'at in order to become a Qari Sab or anything like that. Wallahi, it just keeps me on my toes, because what happens is, after memorizing the Qur'an, shaitan get the better of you. Oh, Taraweeh, you know, there's 12 months to go before you get to Taraweeh, and of course that really shouldn't be the case. We should be revising the Qur'an every day, but I was trying to push myself with my really busy, hectic schedule. I was looking for an incentive, right? Like, I need a teacher who's constantly going to call me, read, and I'm ready to pay. So I found some of these Egyptian teachers, Sheikh Muhammad Fuad, and now Sheikh Jalal from Birmingham.
Oh, subhanAllah.
Yeah. Sheikh, that's my Sheikh for Khalaf and Hamza.
Allah.
Yeah, that's my Sheikh.
I always say Sheikh Jalal is so underrated, subhanAllah. He's such a humble soul.
A really lovely person. Honestly, a very, very lovely person.
SubhanAllah.
Well, all of my teachers have been amazing, right? Even Sheikh Muhammad Fuad is really amazing. Allahumma barik. But I recently visited Sheikh Jalal, and his etiquettes and in his masjid was really amazing, honestly. Very, very humble as well. And فعلى كل حال, I went into Qira'at, and I'm just taking my time with it because of all the other different sciences that I study. I'm just trying to do infirad, just for the sake of, keeping that momentum going, staying on top of my Qur'an, right? You move on to, and also when you think about it, when you go into different riwayah, you're going to be revising that page more than you would if you were just going through Hifdh.
Yeah, true.
Right? These sakatat weren't easy. It drove me nuts at times, And I thank Sheikh Jalal for being extremely patient with me. From time to time, I drop him a message and I say, Sheikh, you're very patient with me. Jazakallah khair. I thought he was going to cut me off because I know there's a huge waiting list for Sheikh Jalal. It's like, maybe I'm not worthy, and maybe because I was very busy at the time when I started with him. I was still in Medina. I was revising for my masters to get into the masters program. I had my exams. I was still finishing off Al-Kisa'i with Sheikh Muhammad Fuad, on top of all of my other commitments in the Jami'ah, in the Haram. I thought the Sheikh was going to maybe drop me, but he didn't. He was very patient and everything. And may Allah Azza wa Jalla preserve him.
Ameen. This is a question with regards to the riwayat that people have. This is the question is, they haven't studied that riwayah under a sheikh, but they've heard the recitation on YouTube, and they want to go and lead the salah after listening to that recitation, and they say to themselves, I've listened to the recitation from that sheikh, and I understand how to do it. Like, let's say Khalaf and Hamza, that portion. Let's say someone listens to that recording and they go, I got that. So, Allahu Akbar. Are they allowed to? Is that something that's allowed to do, or do they have to study the whole Qira'at and get an ijazah next?
Wallahi, do you have to get an ijazah in order for you to read the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla? Even when it comes to Hifdh, I think most people don't actually have the ijazah, right?
Yeah.
So would we say now that they can't? Right? As long as, of course, you're reading the recitation properly, I hope there's no issue with it, inshallah ta'ala. That makes sense. Because the same argument will be brought, right, when it comes to Hifdh. Like over there in Morocco, they're acquainted with Warsh. Now he wanted to read Hifdh because he's been listening to it for years, and he's going to get it right. And would there really be an issue?
No.
That makes sense.
No, it does.
But inshallah ta'ala, Khalaf is a bit complicated.
It's a complicated one to start.
Maybe read to a teacher. Maybe read to a teacher.
Yeah. And get it passed through him first.
Yeah. At least maybe good 10 juz or maybe half the Qur'an before you start freestyling with it.
No. So subhanAllah. So someone mentioned something really powerful and really sort of some comments like this, subhanAllah, that really make you think, that it was said that reciting different riwayat is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's like, wow, that is so true, because the Prophet had to recite in different riwayat for the Sahaba to know. And so by doing that, you're actually, subhanAllah, that in itself implementing a sunnah, which is really, really beautiful, subhanAllah. Sheikh, I know, subhanAllah, you're very tight on time, and we want to really wrap it up, because I know, subhanAllah, you got to get to, mashallah, another
let me just quickly check how long it takes to.
That's fine, inshallah. We just got, I don't know if you're familiar with Sheikh.
I don't know how East London is a bit inside.
We usually just finish it off with a quick fire round. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the very rapid sort of question and answer kind of style. I hope you don't mind, inshallah.
It takes an hour and 25 minutes to get there.
Okay, inshallah. This is a quick fire round, inshallah ta'ala. So
you can ask me what food I like, or
then we'll get to that. Sheikh, what is your favorite ayah currently?
My favorite ayah, that's very, very hard, to be honest. I think one of my favorite ayat in the Qur'an is أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ مَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Right? Hasn't the time come now for them to become conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? To have the reverence of Allah Azza wa Jal.
Who's your favorite reciter, Sheikh?
I really like Sheikh Yasir Dosri. Also Sheikh Hassan Salih. Right. Who else do I really like listening to? Sheikh Yasir Dosri. He's like, I really, really love the way he recites. Also, I enjoy listening. I know this is going to surprise a lot of people, but I don't know if you guys know the brother called Abdullah Hussein from Birmingham.
No, Abdullah Hussein. I'm not familiar with him myself.
Yeah, he's a Somali brother, graduated from the Jami'ah. I really enjoy listening to him while I'm on my travels.
Inshallah.
And Sheikh Muhammad Ayyub as well.
Fantastic. Inshallah, Hijazi.
And the brother, Abdullah Hussein, he sounds like Sheikh Muhammad Ayyub, so that's maybe why.
Inshallah. Your favorite surah, Sheikh?
Surah Yusuf. I'm doing a tour on it now. And I think Surah Yusuf, the whole university tour that I'm currently doing, the theme is Surah Yusuf.
Okay.
Yes, because Surah Yusuf, university students can relate to it on so many different levels. Like people from different walks of life, Surah Yusuf is the surah for you, right? So relatable. Like it's one of the reasons why I really like Surah Yusuf is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not relieve Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam from his difficulties and trials and tribulations by a miracle. Allah Azza wa Jalla could have easily split the prison into half, right? In order to free him, in order to bring him out. Just like Allah Azza wa Jalla split the moon, right? In the time of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And just like he split the sea in order to save Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Perhaps so that it could be relatable to every individual.
SubhanAllah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Sheikh, your favorite riwayah?
When I first started doing Qalun, that became my favorite. Because after Shu'bah, after Asim, I did Qalun. And someone that really helped me as well was Brother Ibrahim. You guys know Ibrahim? Nadiri? Mazinawi?
Yes, نعم. Like Sheikh Maher al-Mu'aqli.
Yeah, Maher al-Mu'aqli.
Yeah.
I used to read on him Qalun and I used to practice a lot on him because he had Qalun before me.
No.
So that was my favorite, the Silatu Mim al-Jam'. Silatu Mim al-Jam'. And then it became Kisai because I love Imalat. Then Khalaf, he has Imalat and he has these Sakatat as well. And
2 boxes.
And I think that's going to remain as my favorite.
SubhanAllah.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
And you've also got the Shatibi and Tayyibat al-Nashr, which sound different in some...
Like when you look at Tayyibat al-Nashr, the Khalaf and Hamza is very similar also to Kisai.
Okay.
So it's like a combination. So I'm looking forward to that.
Inshallah. Sheikh, your favorite hadith?
Should have sent me all these questions prior and I would have thought about it. The hadith that I mentioned in the lecture. Sorry, in the podcast. In the podcast, yeah. You don't leave something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, except that Allah Azza wa Jal will give you that which is better. That is my favorite hadith. Really is.
Favorite dua, Sheikh?
Favorite dua, Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khayru man zakkaha anta waliyuha wa mawlaha. Oh Allah, grant our hearts at taqwa wa zakkiha, and purify our hearts, right? And you're the best of those who purify. Anta waliyuha, you are his guardian and you are his protector. And also I really like the dua of Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu when he would say, Allahumma arzuqni ash-shahadata fi sabilik waj'al mawti bi baladi rasulik, asking Allah for husn al-khatima, right? Oh Allah, grant me martyrdom, right? And allow me to die in the city of your prophet, right? May Allah Azza wa Jal grant us that.
Ameen.
Right? And also I'll mention the third one, يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك على طاعتك. O turner of the hearts,
keep our hearts firm
upon your obedience, upon your religion.
Sheikh, this is another common question that's asked. Favorite story from the stories of the prophets? We may have touched upon that. Surah Yusuf.
Yeah.
Which no.
Also the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam.
No.
Yes.
Which story from the stories of the Sahaba really inspires you the most?
I think one of them is Ka'b ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Right? It just shows you that the Sahaba are human beings at the end of the day. Right? In the sense where he made a mistake, just like we make mistakes, right? And Allah Azza wa Jal forgave him. His bara'ah came down, or like, should I say, the fact that he was forgiven came down from the 7 heavens, And also, subhanAllah, the incident involving Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, when the filthy allegations were spread about her, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala freed her and from these allegations. And I love it's not this companion, but the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam related the story of the one who killed 100. I've got a lecture on it. I derived 20 benefits from this incident, the story of the one who killed 100. And the reason why I also really like it is because it's very relatable, right? That's why I was giving lectures on it. Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel, 20 benefits from the one who killed 100. Yeah.
Sheikh, this is another interesting question. Coming to the end, we've got best live recitation you've listened to.
Best live recitation that I've listened to? I think it's in the Haram. Haram al-Makki. Sheikh Yasir Dawsari.
Best country you've traveled to?
I've been saying this quite a lot recently, right? Going to Australia. Right? I know it's the lands of the disbelievers and it's not a Muslim country. Of course, you have Saudi Arabia and whatever have you. But from a da'wah perspective, right? Honestly, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
An amazing experience. Like, I was really, really shocked by how many people were turning up to the programs. Like, just about every masjid, it would be ram-packed all the way to the back and wanting to benefit, thirsty for knowledge. And the people were amazing. Honestly, it was one of the greatest life experiences that I had. Really taught me a lot. And it showed me that there is still a lot of khair amongst the ummah, because prior to me going to Australia, I was reading a lot of negative things. There are people of dunya, they're this and they're that, and probably no one's going to come to the programs, and right, the liberals and whatever have you. Akhi, man, it showed me that there's so much khair within people. The fact that they really wanted to benefit. At times, I remember the last day before I left Sydney, they made this last minute announcement that a program has been organized for a wedding hall, because the masajid were getting too packed out, and the last program, they wanted to be in a huge place, and it was 1,000 seats. Akhi, I think it was announced around maybe 10 p.m. And akhi, the next day it was absolutely full.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah. Yeah, so many people came and they really wanted to benefit. You could see on their faces that they were looking for something. Yeah. And of course, Saudi Arabia, without a shadow of a doubt. They were the sweetest days of my life. To be in Medina, going back and forth from Makkah to Medina, has so far been the highlight of my life.
Sheikh, I think this is a question that people ask because they want to know what to buy when they bring you to the ISOC events. Favorite cuisine?
SubhanAllah. Who asked you that? Queen Mary lot.
This is inside, so we're going to get this to them, inshallah. They're watching this.
I'm a meatarian. I don't know, is that even a word, or I think Abu Taymiyyah made that word up?
Meatarian. That's a new movement.
No, Wallahi, was honestly, Jazakallah khair for having me on.
Wallahi, just you coming down, blessing us with your presence, just in between shooting from one thing to the next. You could have been.
It's fine.
I was
actually planning, actually, labas.
No.
I actually got the times completely wrong, because I was planning to spend time with my mother, because she lives here. So I'm from Leicester, but I come visit her from time to time. So I completely miscalculated my timings. But khair, but even she said, yeah, go, don't worry, inshallah.
SubhanAllah, that's wow.
She wants the benefit, to take place.
Yeah. Allahu Akbar. That shows a parent, SubhanAllah, as well. That's visionary, and that's SubhanAllah, looking for the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your mother, your parents. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for giving your time. And inshallah ta'ala
it's a pleasure, honestly.
To
be sitting amongst the Hifdh.
Wallahi, it's honor, wallahi. For those, inshallah ta'ala, who've watched, inshallah ta'ala, the podcast, we have many other podcasts, inshallah, featuring many of those who've embarked on this journey with the Qur'an, inshallah ta'ala. If you enjoy the video, inshallah, please do share the video. Please do like the video, inshallah ta'ala. And please don't forget to subscribe and share the word, inshallah ta'ala, to all those that you know who are on their journey with the Qur'an. At any stage at the beginning, who are Hufaz, who need some motivation, inshallah ta'ala. And with that, inshallah, we'll conclude today's podcast episode. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barik ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
طوله دفاق وسباقنا ضم المتون بشأنها ما خاب عبد باذل سباق فتجمعوا لتنافس بكتابنا إن اجتماع الخيرين وفاق يا مرحبا أهل القرآن